In this video, we're looking at an example of variance analysis from chapter 16. So this is using problem information to recreate the profit variance analysis that's shown in your textbook in Exhibit 16.5. I've already pre-filled the actual information from this problem. So we have in this problem that the only information we have is the actual information. We lost the master budget, but we have some information about things that would have happened in the master budget. So one of the first things that we have is that we plan to produce and sell 108,000 units at $5 each. So when we start creating our master budget, we're going to take information from this problem. So if we have 108,000 units times $5 per unit, that gives us our sales revenue for our master budget of $540,000. Then we also want to determine what our variable manufacturing costs are and what our marketing and administrative costs are. So we have that our variable marketing and administrative costs are budgeted at 10% of the sales revenue. So 10% of 540,000 is 54,000. Then it gives us our contribution margin. It says that at this volume, our contribution margin would have been 380,000. So what we need to determine then is what are our variable manufacturing costs? Well, if we take our sales revenue minus our marketing and administrative costs minus our contribution margin, we're working backwards to figure out what that manufacturing variable cost is of 106,000. Now we're trying to figure out what our fixed costs are for this master budget. So it tells us that we have manufacturing fixed costs are $2 per unit at the normal volume of 108,000 units. So our fixed manufacturing costs are 108,000 units times fixed cost of $2 per unit. I gotta stop putting commas in when I'm typing it in. Then the next thing it tells us is that our operating profit is budgeted at $1 per unit of our normal volume. So if our master budget is for 108 units, then our operating profit was 108,000. Now we can use those numbers to determine what our marketing and administrative costs. We're going to take our contribution margin minus the manufacturing costs minus our operating to back into what our marketing and administrative fixed costs are. So that's our master budget. The next thing we want to do is create a flexible budget. So what would our budget have been if we had actually planned for 120,000 units? Well, it already tells us we have a normal sales price of $5 per unit. So our flexible budget sales revenue is 120,000 times $5 per unit. Our manufacturing and administrative costs are budgeted to be 10% of sales. We take our sales revenue times 10%. So then we need to calculate what our contribution margin would have been. So our contribution margin of 380,000 divided by 108,000 units, that gives us a contribution margin per unit and we take that times our flexible budget amount of 120,000 units. That gives us a contribution margin rounded of $422,222. Then we use that to help us get what our variable manufacturing costs are, just like we did with the master budget. So we're going to take our sales revenue minus our marketing administrative costs minus our contribution margin. Gives us $117,778 in variable manufacturing costs for our flexible budget. Fixed costs in the flexible budget are identical to the fixed costs in the master budget. That gives us an operating profit of our contribution margin minus so we have an operating profit of $150,022. Now we're going to look at the different variances. So our sales activity variance, remember that variance is caused specifically the difference between how much we budgeted for 108,000 units and what we did in our flexible budget. So we have a $60,000, so we just take our flexible budget amounts minus the master budget amounts. Really? That gives us our sales activity variance. So this variance should be an unfavorable variance. Whoa. So we have unfavorable manufacturing and marketing administrative variable variances for our sales activity variance, and we have favorable sales revenue and contribution margin operating profit variance. There's no variance in fixed costs between the flexible budget and the master budget. Now we'll move on to the sales price variance. So the sales price variance only affects the sales revenue amount. So this is the difference between our actual results minus our flexible budget amount. So we have a 72,000 favorable sales price variance. Then we're going to look at our two marketing and administrative variances. So we have our actual variable amount minus the budgeted variable amount. Show that that's an unfavorable. So we have 140,000 unfavorable variance there. And for our fixed, variable, and administrative, the difference between our flexible budget and our actual. So we have a $57,200 unfavorable amount. If we add those together, that gives us an unfavorable total marketing and administrative variance, $58,600 unfavorable. So now we're going to look at our manufacturing variances. So that's exactly like the marketing and administrative variances. So we're going to look at the difference between our flexible budget for our variable manufacturing costs and what our actual budget of manufacturing costs. So our flexible budget versus our manufacturing budget. So we have a negative or an unfavorable variance of $29,422. We spent more than our flexible budget. And our fixed manufacturing costs, we have an $11,000 favorable budget in our favorable variance in our manufacturing fixed amount. So we're going to take the sum of that column, and that gives us our total manufacturing variance, which is the fixed manufacturing variance plus the variable manufacturing variance. So now we have completed that chart that looks like Exhibit 16.5 in your textbook. You have a homework problem that is extremely similar to this, and hopefully this video will help you complete that homework problem.